So, since Tom Holland appeared in Captain America Civil War, his version of Spider Man's pretty much become a fan favourite within the MCU and Marvel fans. And yeah, he is a pretty good interpretation of the character. And his movies of Spider-Man: Homecoming and his subsequent appearance in Avengers: Infinity War, they flesh out the character more and still kept him as a fan favourite. Now, although Peter Parker technically ends up as a pile of ash by the end of Avengers: Infinity War, poor kid, the first movie slated for after Avengers 4 is due to be Spider-Man: Far From Home. So it's fairly safe to assume that Peter Parker in some way may be getting a resurrection in some form. We don't know what form that will take yet, but yeah, it's safe to say Spidey's got a future ahead of them. Now, we've already had Spider-Man Homecoming, and we're due to get Spider-Man Far From Home. However, they did announce I think, shortly after Spider-Man Homecoming, that they were going to try and get a trilogy out of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which, yeah, that's not surprising. They did a trilogy for Captain America and a trilogy for Thor and Iron Man, so it wouldn't be that surprising if we got a third Spider-Man movie. But seeing as we haven't even got to Spider-Man Far From Home yet, we don't know exactly what it would include. Well, I've got kind of a short list of what I imagine the third Spider-Man movie kind of may look like. I could be totally wrong. I hope I'm totally wrong. I hope they come up with some fresh stuff. But here today is kind of my interpretation, or a few scenes at least, of Spider-Man as Yet Untitled. Not to be confused with the comedy series featuring Alan, what's his name, from QI. And anyway, now it's safe to assume with them using kind of villains who haven't yet kind of who weren't used in the Sam Raimi or new Amazing Spider-Man series, that they would want to keep that going. I mean, they used Vulture, Shocker, Tinkerer, and Scorpion, but then they're also set to use Mysterio, or supposedly for Spider-Man Far From Home. So it seems safe to assume for Spider-Man as Yet Untitled that they would want to use a villain that hasn't yet been seen. I mean, they may choose to go back and use redo a villain who had previously been used, but to go with the ones who haven't yet been used in the big movies, there's a few that could be done, such as Morbius, Shriek, Carnage, Craven, Chameleon, or as I said, they could go back to one of the old ones, but for the time being, let's say that Spider-Man has to fight Michael Morbius. Yeah, kind of a vampire character essentially in the Spider-Man universe. So, kind of one of the scenes that I imagine that I guess kind of would happen towards the end, or maybe the kind of end of the second act, start of the third, would be kind of Spider-Man in a fight with Morbius, or whatever villain you want to choose, and Marissa Tomei's Aunt May gets caught in the crossfire. And she gets injured. Now, Tom Holland's Peter Parker or Spider-Man, he tries to get Aunt May kind of to medical attention, and he does manage to, but it's ultimately too late, and she's too badly injured and there's nothing they can do. She eventually kind of leans over and says to Peter that she's proud of him before dying. And this is what ultimately spurs Peter Parker on to fight Morbius and eventually gain victory over him. Yeah, that's kind of fairly standard stuff that you would likely see in a Spider-Man film. The last 2 points, I think, are where I might be getting a little wishy, but anyway. So my second point for Spider-Man as Yet Untitled would be showing Tony Revolori's Flash Thompson. Now, Flash in Spider-Man Homecoming, he was different from the kind of Flashes that we've seen before, especially the one previously played by Joe Manganiello in the original Spider-Man series. But I have thought of a kind of ending that they could do for him in the third Spider-Man movie that kind of does draw on points that Flash had from the comics. It doesn't go full that way, but here's what I imagine. Maybe, possibly at some point, Flash finds out that Peter is actually Spider-Man, and subsequently all those years of kind of bullying Peter, verbally abusing him, it suddenly seems a little strange for him. But what I imagine is that kind of, as they reach the end of high school, let's just say kind of by the end of Spider-Man as Yet Untitled, that they're reaching the kind of end of high school, Flash comes up to Peter and tells him that he's planning to join the military after he leaves school. Something that did actually happen in the comics. And kind of, he admits that while they haven't always been the best of friends, they do kind of part respecting each other a little better. Kind of Flash kind of respecting that Peter is Peter Parker, even though he can't entirely accept it, and Peter having to accept that Flash is maybe a little bit of a better man than he previously thought. So yeah, Tony Revolori's Flash, I think, joining the military could be a kind of good plot thread to kind of lead the character on. But the final one, and this is kind of a scene that I imagined out, this is how I imagine Spider-Man as Yet Untitled would end. As I said, Aunt May would be caught in the crossfire between whatever villain, Morbius at this time, and would be killed. And I imagine the film ending in a graveyard with kind of Peter kind of crouched down over Aunt May's grave, maybe it's next to Ben Parker's, and kind of laying down flowers for her. Because, yeah, she was the person who looked after him kind of most of his life. And suddenly a shadow falls over the grave. And he looks back, and it's Michelle Jones, played by actress Zendaya, of course, who had appeared in Spider-Man Homecoming. And maybe they have a moment kind of mourning Aunt May and saying that she was a genuinely great woman. And then, out of the blue, Michelle asks Peter if he'd like to go for coffee sometime. To which Peter looks at her and it's just like, really? And she would say something along the lines of, "You're a loser, Parker. Stone cold geeky loser. But you're also kind of cute. And these days, cute is in short supply." At which point they would smile at each other, stand up, and walk out of the graveyard together. Not holding hands, maybe not even speaking to each other, but definitely a kind of small spark. I mean, I know that Michelle isn't Mary Jane Watson. They've said that before, but they kind of hinted at the end of the first kind of Spider-Man Homecoming that she was this universe's version of MJ, and even if they don't kind of show them properly getting together, I think having that little moment, I think it could wrap things up nicely. Well, there you go. My kind of interpretation, or at least the ending of which, of what would happen in the third Spider-Man movie in the MCU. We'll just have to wait and see what they actually decide to give us. And let's hope it's good. In the meantime, all we can do is wait. See ya.